are in the middle of February, just waiting for spring to happen so we can have some fun in our RV. Hey, let's talk about a few rules, 7 in fact, that in Texas you could find yourself being fined a lot of money or even going to jail for an honest mistake if you're not careful. Do I have your attention? All right, let's have some fun in our RV. Looking at 7 Texas rules and regulations for RV campers you should know. You might not realize how serious these things are taken. Now, we're going to be talking about Texas. Why? Because A, we're in Texas, and Texas has a lot of, different rules. Every state seems to have a different set of rules for speed limits for travel trailers. You know what I'm saying? And so we're going to talk about Texas simply because, it's got so much. It's got over 100 state parks. It's got, I don't know how many city parks and Corps of Engineer parks and county parks. A lot to do just in terms of camping, all right? And there's a lot to see. They got all kinds of things, hunting and fishing, all kinds of things. So 90% of our camping, of course, is right here in Texas. And so, well, let's get to it, all right? All right. Now, we bought our RV back in COVID. We were going to do some van camping, and while I was putting together a van that we had and do that, my wife just said, hey, let's do, let's get a trailer. Let's do an RV. Okay, but on one condition. We are going to use it. We're not going to be some of these people that buy an RV, use it one time, then park it behind the house and sell it 5 years later. I want to try to get a trip maybe once a month, average 12 a month. Well, in truth, we've averaged maybe 10 a year, and that's pretty good. But I want to save you some fines or getting out of kicked out of state parks or things like that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert. I am a retired deputy sheriff, so I know some ways about how law enforcement's going to view some of these things. And but I'm not an expert on all this stuff as far as the parks and all that stuff goes. All right, and I'm not an expert. You ready? All right. All right. You may know more. Please feel free to comment, and I know at least on one of these things you're going to disagree with me wholeheartedly because I've seen people do it on other sites. They just say, no, that's not going to happen. I'll tell you what, it is going to happen, okay? And so feel free to comment, ask questions, and you know the drill. Like and subscribe. Let's jump right into the first one. Every state seems to have its own idea about what is the right towing speed, for RVs, for campers and things like that. Some states say 55 miles an hour, no matter what, no matter where, what. Other ones set all kinds of different speed limits depending on the kind of roadway you're on. In Texas, it's real simple. For a relatively small RV, the speed limit is 70 miles an hour during the day and 65 at night. It doesn't matter if you're down by Austin and the speed limit down there on that part of the interstate is 85 miles per hour. You can only go 70, all right? But it also doesn't mean if the speed limit's 45, you can still go 70. No, it's just the top speed is going to be 70, okay? 70 during the day, 65 at night, and that's for RVs under 26 feet. If you're over 26 feet, then you need to subtract 10 miles an hour off each one of those, make it 60 and 55, okay? That's pretty simple, okay? That's one of the things Texas does differently than a lot of other states. Let's move on, okay? Weapons, firearms when you're camping. All right, some people in other states think that we're down here like the Wild West. We're having shootouts on Main Street, They think everyone in Texas carries a gun. Well, that's the Wild West. That's not us. In truth, Texas, like 47 other states, generally believes that law-abiding, responsible adults have the constitutional right to have firearms. 47 other states, California, New York, and I forgot what the other one is. They don't do it, all right? But anyway, having said that, Texas has some of the stiffest and strongest penalties or regulations for carrying a handgun and not taking that responsibility seriously. For example, if you allow a firearm to be stored in an insecure fashion, insecure might be it feels bad for itself. I don't know, but that's not stored securely, where someone who is unstable or a minor or something like that can get access to it, and they commit a crime with it. Well, guess what? You get to share in that crime. You get a piece of the action on what happened to them. Depending on what happens, you could go to jail too. All right. So Texas takes, they say, yeah, you can have a firearm, but you better be responsible with it. I think that's fair. All right. You can have a firearm on a state park, and it used to be up until, I don't know, like 2011, 2009, something like that. They always had signs going in a state park, no firearms. Well, they got rid of those. You can have a firearm in a state park. How about that? All right. You can have it on your person, in your vehicle. It doesn't matter. All right. But but alcohol, don't you dare. All right. Doesn't it seem natural to be sitting by the lake and maybe having some, hamburgers or hot dogs, watching the sunset and drinking a beer? Man, that sounds just like heavenly to me. Yeah, that sounds really great. But guess what? In state parks since 2009, it's illegal to consume or display alcohol. Fines are possible up to $500 for doing that, and you will be asked to leave the park. Okay, so keep that in mind. But okay, reality versus the law. If you want to grill some steaks and then go inside your camper and have a glass of wine with that, no one's going to care. All right, you're going to have to do something. This is your home, just like your home is, okay, by law. And so a police officer is going to need probable cause to come in here and search your place for alcohol. They're not going to do it. Okay, they're for lots of reasons. They're not going to do it. If you're not, brandishing that bottle of beer out there on the roadway, then or something like that, don't worry about it. Be smart, okay? But displaying or publicly drinking alcohol is a big deal in Texas parks. The other reality about it, I think that the alcohol is something they use to help, enforce other laws. Okay, let's say a family is being really obnoxious, or kids are being obnoxious or something like that, and they're playing music and doing all kinds of stuff. Well, that's kind of subjective. If you're saying, that you go to the office and say, these people are being loud, and they're, all right, what are you going to enforce? You're going to go there, and maybe they're being loud, maybe they're not, maybe they're just having fun, normal fun. Kids are riding around on their bicycles, but you don't like that. Well, they're doing that. Well, you might talk to them. The state park police might look at them something. But if they go there and thinking, they're getting a comment, alcohol, well, the discussion's over. All right. If they're drinking and there's any kind of doubt like that, somebody complains or something, they've got probable cause to just kick them out of the park. So I think alcohol might actually kind of be a tool for something else. Does that make sense? Okay. In Texas, if you have a regular small RV like we do that's under 26 feet, you don't need a special driver's license. In some states, you kind of do. You have to have something kind of like in some states, you have to have a motorcycle endorsement or something like that on your driver's license. For some states, it's rare, but you got to have something for towing. Okay. In Texas, you don't. Good news, unless you're over 26,000 pounds. Now, it might be possible to actually get 26,000 pounds on a fifth wheel or a gooseneck or something like that if you had a big camper, or if you had one of these destination camper kind of things, probably for sure. So keep that in mind. If you're over 26,000 pounds, you will need a special driver's license for your camper. But golly, I don't know if I've ever seen that. How about you? Another thing, waste disposal. Okay, this gets tricky. This can be a big, serious fine, all right? We were at a state park last year, and one of us accidentally left the shower running a little bit. And now, what we do is we don't typically wash our hands in the sink, because if especially somebody's cooking or getting ready or about ready to eat, I just step into the shower, turn the knob on the shower, it sprays down. I wash my hands there like that, get a towel, wipe it off, do that sort of thing. We use that for washing our hands, all right? Maybe somebody left it on, didn't turn it all the way down, barely left it on, I don't know. But we looked there at that evening, and our gray tank was full. It was full of relatively clean water, but it was full, okay? And well, as luck would have it, we had just purchased one of those tote tubs and things, so we decided to make a video on taking one for a spin. And so we used the tote, we filled it up with the gray water and all that type of stuff. There was a guy camping next to me who was an engineer or something like that, and he said, you don't really need to do that. That gray water is really not dangerous water. It's really not a problem. And you can drain it off on the ground. It's not a big deal. Checked on it later, and now we wanted to make that video anyway. And sure enough, wastewater is wastewater, no matter which tank it comes from. All right. So if you don't have a cap on your dump port there like that, you just don't have a cap, and it maybe is leaking just a little bit there. Maybe something trickles out or something like that. And even if it's nothing really bad, okay, you can be fined for not having a cap, regardless of how much has leaked out. Now, if you do let some leak out, gray water or black water, it doesn't matter, okay? It's a fine of $500. That's a Class C misdemeanor if it's under 5 gallons. Well, how big is your gray water tank? Well, ours is like, what, 28 gallons or something like that? If it's over 5 gallons, it becomes a Class B misdemeanor, and the fine is up to $2,000. Holy cow! You know, and that's one of those. Typically, Class B misdemeanors are only $1,000. Well, with certain health type things, they can raise that amount. How about that? So over 5 gallons is a Class B, and you can be fined up to $2,000 for a little accident. Okay. Now, a Class B misdemeanor is a serious criminal conviction, and it can follow. It will be on your record, on your criminal history for the rest of your life. Don't get a Class B conviction. All right, you don't want one of those. You really, really don't. It can keep you from getting a lot of different kinds of jobs, like maybe a police officer in some states. You have a Class B, that's it. You're done. You can't go. Can't do it. And so there you go. Keep that in mind. Anything over 5 gallons, $2,000 fine, Class B. All right, that's one of those I was going to tell you about, that accident, a simple mistake, can really cost you dearly. All right, let's see. Now, we talked about waste and we talked about firearms, but let me tell you right now, one of the quickest ways to get in trouble in Texas is just to possess fireworks in just about any city or state park. I'm not talking about using fireworks. I'm not talking about shooting them off. I'm saying just having some fireworks can be very, very serious. Now, you guys, I hear some of you there already bowing up, saying that's not going to do that. They're not going to be that kind of thing. Because I've seen it. I've seen it on other websites. I've seen other people who are talking about it, and they say, no, they're not going to do that just for shooting off some fireworks or something like that. No one's ever going to enforce that. No, that's not true. I've seen it happen. Okay, but just having fireworks in your car is a Class C misdemeanor, and which means you can be fined up to $500. And actually shooting them off in any city or state park is up to $2,000. All right. Now, in some places, and I suspect in state parks, this is enthusiastically, vigorously enforced. I spent my whole life in either law enforcement or the fire service, and we're talking about 40 years, all right? I have seen cities or jurisdictions decide we're not going to, they had something happen last year, a little grass fire or house burned down or something like that. We're not going to let that happen this year. And I was on a fire engine on the 4th of July, right after dinner, we were patrolling neighborhoods, doing all kinds of stuff, waiting to see a bottle rocket shoot up out of somebody's backyard. And we did, in which case we called it in, and the fire marshal or police officer came there and gave them a fine for hundreds of dollars. Okay, so it can be enforced. We're right at the end of a secret military base, and you'll hear those F-35s flying over us all the time. Just ignore that. But let's say you make a terrible mistake, honest mistake. You're camping at a state park, and you've got a cousin or relatives that own hundreds of acres nearby, and you're there for the 4th of July, and he said, yeah, bring your fireworks over here, blah, 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 and we're going to shoot them off, do that kind of thing, all right? And you shoot off some fireworks, and you go back to the state park, and you've got a bottle rocket sticking out of your back pocket, okay? An honest mistake, come on, it really, really is. I'm here to tell you, you're probably going to get fined if the cop just happens to see you with that, okay? Now, I'm not going to talk about if you know, I know 99% of you get this and are never going to do it, but there's that 1% who might say, hey, this looks like a neat place to shoot off fireworks, and we'll shoot off some fireworks in a state park. Oh my gosh, don't do that, okay? A few years ago, down by Austin in Bastrop County, they had a wildfire that ignited on September 4th, okay? It was the most destructive wildfire in the state's history. It burned up 32,000 acres, 1,600 homes, and killed 2 people. And not only that, it burned up a big historical state park. Buildings there over 100 years old, things like that, okay? I can bet money if you show up with some fireworks in your pocket in Bastrop State Park, you're going to be lucky if you don't go to jail, okay? And there's been several other places in the Panhandle and stuff like that in recent years where they had wildfires that devastated communities. Yeah, I think they're going to take this seriously. And when they were making me go out and patrol, there wasn't anything like that. They didn't have any kind of history like that. Oh my gosh. Can you see what I'm trying to say here? This is a big deal. Please don't. Please, whatever you do, don't. Okay, picture it this way. You can have a 45, okay, a 45 automatic pistol on your hip, and no big deal. But you got a bottle rocket sticking out of your back pocket. You're in serious trouble, okay? And that's the way it is. That's the honest to goodness truth, all right? All right, let's see what else we need to cover. One little thing in Texas. We have our backup cameras or things like that, for our RVs. Don't put them in the middle of your windshield. Don't put them where they block any view of your windshield. Okay. Windshield mounts for compasses or phones or anything like that. Texas really takes a dim view on that, but typically they'll give you a warning ticket or something like that. But there's not a real law that says you can't mount your phone there or something like that. But there is a strict law that says you can't put things in your windshield that block your view at all. So it makes it really kind of subjective for the police officer. And the Texas Department of Public Safety, the Highway Patrol, they give tickets. I've heard them say, these guys say, if I pull somebody over, somebody's getting a ticket. I never pull anybody over and they not get a ticket, period. All right. And I'm thinking, well, okay, that was one of my instructors in school. And so my wife and I were driving down 287 in Texas, and at the time we both had badges in our wallets. Okay, we were both employed by fire departments. Okay, and we didn't realize our sticker was out of date. All right, on our license plate. All right, and DPS pulled us over for that, and he was nice, and he was talking to us, and he was doing all this kind of thing. We both had badges in our wallet. We just happened to show to him. And this guy couldn't have been a nicer guy. And then he wrote us a ticket. He said, there you go. Drive friendly. They don't not give tickets. All right. That's all there is. All right. That about it. And that obstructed view thing, you know, the dice that they used to hang from windshields, from the rearview mirrors. The state has kind of cracked down on those things hanging there, and they don't like graduation hat tassels and stuff like that. They really don't. So RVers can kind of get picked on for stuff like that, and I wanted to just mention that. Okay, that is the list of 7 things for today for you to think about, for you to know and be careful with, okay? I know some of you already, I've seen it, are going to say, no, that's bull. They're not going to be enforcing a bottle rocket or something like that. I'm telling you they are, okay? I've been there. I've been forced to do it. So it can happen, all right? But with that, have fun. We'll see you down the road. It's a pretty day in the middle of February, and you know what? We can't wait to get back out there and hit some state parks. Hope to see you there. See you guys later.